Previously, we've been open and honest about how we almost tanked our business. It's an absolutely frightening time that if your business has to go through it, it can leave you feeling all sorts of ways. Some of you are going through that right now. If you have ever found yourself or finding yourself at the point where you're not sure how you're going to pay that next bill, how you're going to pay the staff, or how you're going to pay some of the benefits, sit back, stay tuned, because we are going to go through that in detail to hopefully give you some great ideas. So buckle up, because we're going to go for a ride.
Whew. Oh, Bryan. Yeah, this was going back to that moment when we
still
were.
Shake.
Yeah, it was a very scary time, and I know that there are a lot of people who are watching this who may be in that situation right now. Now, we have the benefit of this happened, almost 8 years ago, and so we've got a lot of time behind us on it, and we're in a much different place. But it's still very raw, and still those lessons stay with us every single day. Every decision we make, there are pieces of what happened back then. And so I think this is a really important episode. And before we get into it, I just want to remind everyone, we're not financial advisors, we're not accountants, we're not bookkeepers, we're not bankers. We're just a business that has gone through this. And so what we're going to be doing is just giving some insights and some thoughts on things that we did, and also things that we've picked up from others when they went through it. And we hope that it can be something that could be of service to you. But before you execute on any of them, make sure you have a conversation with your bookkeeper, with your accountant, a financial advisor, or someone who you trust to kind of talk these things through before you do anything. But with that said, we're just going to jump right into it. When you're in that moment, when your business is at a place where you really don't know what's next, you're in a cloud, you're in the dark, and the anxiety alone is keeping you from thinking straight. Nothing is making sense at that moment. And it's just idea after idea is flooding you. And the first thing you got to do is just take a breath and just take a moment to really kind of center yourself for just a moment. There are some key steps that you should take to kind of begin to get yourself out of that moment. And we're going to start right off the top, Bryan. Really, the first thing you got to do is really assess where you are. What is your actual current situation? Sometimes you'll find that you're not as bad as you thought you were. Sometimes you might find that you're maybe a little worse than you thought you were. But you have to confront it and assess it. And there are 4 things that you have to know in this moment. One is knowing the cash on hand. So what is actually in the bank? What is the cash that's coming in? So your accounts receivables. Perhaps you have some open invoices out there or projects that are about to go to invoicing. Your operational costs. How much of your money goes out every single month? Where does every penny go? And then once you know what your operational cost is per month, what is the bare bones that you can get away with every month to operate? It's important. And then from that, once you have all those, you're going to develop a priority list. What are the things that have to get paid when? Who goes first, who goes next? And what are the things that can kind of hold off for a bit? And we're going to go into a few of these in just a second. But Bryan, when you think about some of the things, what were the first things that kind of hit you when you look at those sort of first 4 items of knowing where you are? What's the first one that kind of hits you?
Oh, opening that bank account. Right in the order that you gave them. Opening that bank account, and you see it and you say, wow, this is how much I have to pay out a month, and this is what's there. Knowing that clients don't pay the second the job is done. Things have to get processed, and depending on the invoice, that could be 60 days out. So the terror of that and that combined are immediately what hits. So know where you're at. Try to always know where you're at. And yeah, feel the fear. Feel it. Allow that to permeate. Because that's going to throw everything else we're going to discuss here. Have I oversimplified that?
No, I think you're spot on. And what's interesting is as we go through these, there are certain key moments we should almost make like a little ding sound, because there are certain things that we're going to say that are actually going to touch on how you're going to set up your business after you get through this. And these are key. The cash on hand is a big one, and how you're spending it is a big one. I can tell you the things we were chasing that are the things that end up needing to be fixed later on. So knowing where you're on. So now that we know this cash, and we know how much cash we have, knowing how much accounts receivables we have, how many invoices are out there, that's going to be part of this, the next phase of what you have to do. So know what these numbers are. We have a sheet that's down in the description that you can download, and you can very quickly just fill in some of these numbers for yourself. You don't have to share them with us, with anyone. This is just for you to really be able to look at it. If you have QuickBooks, you can print out reports, have your bookkeeper print out reports for you. Heck, you should be going through this with your accountant and with your bookkeeper, just to get an understanding of what the numbers really mean for you. And they may have some great ideas. Our bookkeeper had some tremendous ideas right out of the gate that helped us get through this. So really reach out to them and see if you can work together. But in the meantime, that sheet, really start to write it out, and you can see it visually right in front of you. So you can start to make some decisions. Once we know all of that, then the next part is, all right, well, on the operational side, we have to, think about it this way. We have to know what we have. And if you're in a dark place, we have to bring in as much cash as we can in a short amount of time to help kind of shore things up and give us some breathing room. But it's not just bringing in, it's also keeping more of what you bring in. So that means cutting those operational costs as low as you possibly can. And Bryan, there are so many places as you think about cutting. Hit me. What are some of the things that you think about when you think about what it costs to run a production company, but more so how we think about the expenses of running a production company?
Therein lies the trap. We are all people who chase. Remember that. We love the new tool. We love the new lens, the new piece of software. We love all this. Johnny and I have both taught college and high school level curriculum for video production. You're not given much of a budget to work with, so you have to get scrappy about how you're going to use the tools to teach the appropriate lessons and create content that actually looks pretty good with bare bones. When you run a business, you don't think about that anymore. You think about, well, if I had 4K, 6K, 8K, 12K cameras, if I had a drone and I could hang from my feet by, all these crazy things that you want, and you set a new normal for what bare bones is. Get that out of your head. Reframe it. You've got to go back to the basics. If my facility was literally decimated, and hopefully that hasn't happened to any of you, in a natural disaster, what are the absolutes that I need to pull from the wreckage in order to keep business going? And when you start to really think differently, you realize that you can easily do 95+% of everything you have ever done with almost nothing. And that needs to sink into you right now because you're panicking. I'm shaking. Just remember how much panic we went through. But if you look at your operational costs differently, what do I actually need to get the job done? Not what do I need so that I can tell people and feel good about and X, Y, and Z, but I do this kind of work. What do I need to get the job done? And that's it. Get to that bare bones. You can get rid of 80% of your overhead easily with just that one tip alone. So what does that look like, Johnny? Can you take us back to that? What does that look like to us?
Well, the word chase is, I think, the appropriate one. We chase a prestige, but we, even like our spaces, our studio, our staff, how big is the sign on the building, all that, it's for satisfying an external response, and not the one that we actually need, not the one for our business to make it a sustainable business, right? It's for what everyone else will think of us. And that it's just, human nature that we chase that. And so this is like that wake up call of saying we need to really prioritize what it is that we want for our business. Do we want it to be a profitable one, or do we want it to be a, popular one with, in social media because of the things we have? That's a dangerous game to play. And at the most basic of levels, one of the places that I wrote down here for cutting is really subscriptions. We sometimes we might have 4 or 5 music library subscriptions because, well, then we'll never run out. We'll always have all the different options we could possibly need. But if you don't have the projects to sustain 4 of them, these are monthly subscriptions. There is no contract that says you have to be paying them every single month. Most of them, if you look at their bylaws, will actually tell you as long as you download a song for a specific project and it's tied to that license during the time that you're a paid subscriber, that's covered. So, subscribe in January, you have a slow February, cancel that subscription, pick it back up in March. Over the year, hopefully you'll be so busy that you won't need to cancel it. But if you're not, there is a lot of money that goes out, $25 at a time. And the more of those subscriptions, now that you think about every music library, and you think about every AI platform that's charging anywhere from $25 to $100 a month, if you have a CRM, what that costs, all of these subscriptions begin to add up. And so you have to prioritize them. Cancel everything you possibly can and get to the absolute bare bones of what you need. If you have no jobs right now, or if you're in editing, keep one music library, the one that you're using the music for these edits. If you have no projects, consider not having any music libraries until you land something, and then renew a license for those. Get those down as low as possible.
Or
Or
get rid of the music library and pay for the needle drop.
exactly.
Charge that track back to your client.
Exactly. Yeah. There's all sorts of ways that you can do it. But I think we get lost in this idea that let's get ourselves set up and we just auto pay, and we just forget that it's even going out of our account. But every month, hundreds of dollars are going away to these subscriptions. So just be cautious. I love the services that we use. I love them. But at the same time, we have to manage them and make sure that we're not just throwing money out at something that we're not actually using at that moment. So be cautious there. The next one is equipment, and this is a great one because I think this also has to do with the prestige, right? We have to have the latest camera, the latest lenses, all of these things, the latest piece of software, and we just keep chasing that. And a lot of times we'll buy things that we maybe use once, if at all, and many times they'll sit in a cage or a shelf, and it just sits there. Looks great, looks fantastic on that shelf. And Bryan, I think we're very good about utilizing our gear to its very last possible moment. We're even repurposing the cameras that we're using for this podcast are 2 generations ago from the cameras that we use for client work. But they were in our cage, and we decided to bring them back up versus buying something new, which we could have done. But why, when we had these perfectly good cameras in our cage, and that's what we're using now. So if you have this gear, if you just bought it, consider returning it, unless you absolutely need it. Make sure you have a camera kit, your lighting kit, your audio kit. But if you're buying additional lights or that new camera because, it will make you a better shooter, consider returning it. If you're within the return window, get that cash back in. And if it's not, consider selling it, whether it's to a retailer or through some of those gear kit companies, or selling it peer-to-peer on Marketplace or something like that. But consider getting the cash back into your account from those pieces of kit. And Bryan, I know that equipment is one of the things that we always talk about equipment. Do you have any thoughts on that part of it?
Yeah. I like shiny toys, but coming from that hardcore education component, you have to make things work. And you do. And you get scrappy. And I think that's where you and I, unfortunately, have a huge benefit over a lot of people out there, which is having that experience allows us to stop, breathe, and say, wait. In our case, taking an entire office and condensing it to a space that's reasonable and an equipment lockup that's reasonable and looking at all this, the one question we asked ourselves was, with every piece of equipment, how many projects do we still need to make that pay for itself? If your racks of gear are filled with equipment that you have to say that regularly, as opposed to this piece of equipment owes me nothing, then you have overbought. If there's any derivation from this equipment owes me nothing, you have overbought. Mm-hmm. That's okay. We all do it. So look at that equipment first and say, if I haven't gotten the value out of it immediately to the point where it's paying itself back, does it still have enough value to sell it and get real money for it? The cameras we're using, as Johnny mentioned, they're solid cameras. We can get some money for them. These cameras owe us nothing, and yet I could still bring it out in the field and get a pretty damn good image out of it. So this camera has not only paid for itself in its first iteration, it's paying for itself right now, which is more like paying us back, and then I can still use it in different ways. So you got to really look at your gear, and you've got to say, if I have 5 of these, do I need 5? Can I get away with 1? If I have this and I haven't really fully been able to utilize an amortization schedule to see its value on payback yet, it's probably new enough that you can still get some money for it. If you're not getting the value out of it, at least take the cash. And that cash is what you need right now. Don't be bashful. Yeah, you can always repurchase down the road, but don't say to yourself, well, I mean, I'm not going to get the appropriate price for it. If you're getting any real money in, get it. This is not the time. This is not the time to sit there and lick wounds over things that you haven't gotten the full value out of. You have to liquidate what you're not regularly using.
Exactly. And there's a couple of things that you said that just hit so well. And one of them was that idea of the space that we're in, and how much of this do we really need, and then the other that you said about the amortization schedule. And I remember somebody told me this when I was we were first starting Henhouse Media, where it was like they were saying to us like, oh yeah, and then come tax time, buy gear to help with your taxes. And it's like, I remember that distinctly, first starting the company out, and that was a piece of advice that someone gave, and that's horrible advice. Don't buy things to help with your tax situation. Work with your accountant throughout the year to figure out better ways to do it than spending cash in that way. There are much better ways to do it. And then the other one, Brian, when you mentioned the space, that's actually the next piece, which is negotiating. So we talked about, there's the gear that you can try to sell or get a refund on. There is the pausing subscriptions and some of those services like that. But then there are the other local relationships that you have that keep your space running. It's, the heat, the power, the water service, the coffee service, office supplies, and the rent. And the rent can be, aside from payroll, rent is usually one of the second highest costs to any business. Mm-hmm. And I think there are many things, when we look at how our businesses are structured, there are many things that make us really reevaluate why we're doing something or why we're chasing certain things. And the rent is one that is a massive wake-up call when you're in a tough spot and you go to, we'll say, write the check for that rent, and you're like, I'm spending this much for all of this space and nothing is happening in 60% of that space. You begin to question things. That negotiating with your landlords, with your vendors, your local vendors, is an important one to have. I would urge a little caution. I think Brian, you would probably agree on this. Is landlords can be a tricky matter. If you have a good relationship with your landlord, that's one thing, and they kind of always preface it of like, here's where we're at. During the pandemic, I think a lot of landlords were working with their tenants anyway. But during regular times, when if you're having an issue, having that conversation can go one of two ways. They're either going to work with you, Or they might be thinking this is a good time for them to try to get someone in who's going to pay a higher rent. So think of it slightly differently and say, hey, we want to, downsize our footprint within this space. They'll be more than happy to do that because they can actually get more for that footprint than what you were paying solo. They'll be able to repurpose that other side of it. But you have to be willing to let that go. Or if you want to keep it, just see if you can negotiate a way to get that lease down by a certain percentage for a certain number of months, to give them that good faith that you are going to be around after it and to continue it, but that you do need this relief at this moment. Again, being cautious to make sure that you understand that relationship with this particular landlord if you're leasing. Perhaps consider talking with some others in commercial real estate just to get an idea of what the best way to approach it is, or see if your bookkeeper or accountant might have some ideas as well. But that's an important one, to reach out to vendors and see what they can do to relieve the pressure a little bit. You have to pay for power. You have to pay for your internet. But there might be some things you can do to, when you're in a jam, that they can help you with for, a certain number of months or something like that. But that's important.
A vendor generally would want to hear that in good faith, you want to do everything to pay all your bills on time. You don't want to get dinged because you're struggling, and don't want to default in any way, shape, or form. That language is real strong that I'm saying. This is the kind of conversation you need with your financial advisors about how to approach it. And I know that some will say you don't want to be that open and honest, but that's going to depend on you. It's going to depend on the vendors, and it's going to depend on the situation. For us, and I'm only speaking for us, the hardest thing was to be open with everybody, but it was also the thing that got us through. To be really open about what was happening. And that it was a troubling time, a hard time, and we did not want to default. And people came out of the woodwork to support us. That was a right situation for us. Now, as we talk about being open and honest, there's one group you have to be completely, absolutely 100% above board with, and that's going to be the hard conversation. And that's going to be the hard conversation because up until this moment, you are literally shaving dollars here and there in order to get money, operating expenses, just to make it through to the next month. Now, when all of that seems to not be enough, which it won't be for most of us, it just won't be, and know that you're not alone, and it's terrifying. The next conversation is that you have it with your employees. You have it with the staff. You have an open forum, and you can do anything you want. You can position it any way you want. For us, the absolute right decision was to be brutally open and honest about where the company is, where we suspect it's heading, but the things we may need to do in order to make that happen. And why? Well, I'm going to ask a question, so we're going to do this in a little bit in reverse, Johnny. Did we make the right decision? And to this day, how do you know it's the right decision? And what was that? And then what was that decision?
Oh my goodness. First, that was the hardest moment I think I've ever experienced. First, you get the news of where your business is at the moment. Mm-hmm. And then you have to, then you and your business partner have to have that conversation of where you are at the moment. And then you got to face the staff. And that was very tough. And I never took that lightly. And I still to this day remember that moment very well. It was the best decision that we made. I think part of it was evaluating who we were as a business, and we had to survive to the next piece. And there were some inefficiencies happening. There were systems we didn't have in place. There were all sorts of things. The hardest part about it is we had built a really great culture, and we were very close with our staff, very close with our staff. There were things that we did for our staff and with our staff, and we got to know them really, really well. So it was really hard because you do feel that responsibility. But an interesting thing happens when you are open and you decide that this is what you're going to do, and that is there's an openness on the other side to hear what's happening, and they actually respect the fact that you're sharing. They know how hard it is for you at that moment. Some will make a decision that they're going to leave. And, you can't blame them. They don't want to go through that period that's about to come down. And others want to know how we can get through this. And there's some very specific ways that you can look at the team when it's time to really look at what that payroll expense is. And if there's nothing worse than missing a payroll, and you never want to do that. And no one wants to be on the other end of that. And so you either can cut the team, you can reduce work hours. In some cases, if you know that it's a very short time period before there's an influx of cash, you can do a temporary layoff. That's an option. But having that conversation with the team, they'll tell you what they're comfortable with or not. And you have to be prepared for the fact that some people will leave right on the spot. And this may sound blunt and cold, but it's not meant to. It's, okay, that actually solves an issue for that moment of you have this one or two people who aren't going to stay, they're going to leave. Then that takes some of the pressure off to some extent. And then the others, decisions will be made on a case-by-case basis. You have to be very clear about what is it that your organization needs at this time in terms of the work that they do. If there's a lot of editing to be done, then making sure that you have an editor or two that's with you. If there's someone who is both a shooter and an editor, that's a good combination to have with you during this type of time, because you can be really efficient and nimble in the way that you do the work that's about to come. And then there are others who, unfortunately, it's not the right time to have their role in your company, and that has to be a very open conversation with them. The big thing about it is, regardless of what it is, you have to be there to help them get on to the next thing they're doing. What are ways that you can help them land on their feet in their next position? Is it reaching out to those that you know in the industry? Is it being there with a really solid recommendation for them when that next job calls that they've applied to? The one thing I can tell you is, after all of this, I know we made the right decision. It was tough, but we made the right decision. And now who we are as a company is very different, and how we approach the idea of employees is very different. And we're still very close with all those who worked with us during that time. Very close to this day. We're still in touch. And it's an amazing thing. That's something that I'm pretty proud of, actually.
I think the only thing I would do to put the cherry on the top of this is, we'd had a situation of dealing with our human capital, our people, with their needs, and doing everything we could throughout our work relationship. Even when somebody was leaving us to go on to a totally different lifestyle, whether it was across the country or whether it was somewhere else, and saying, how can we keep a little cash in your pocket as you're making this transition? Working remotely, etc. Oh, that would be wonderful. Keeping you on benefits till the end of the summer, whatever it happened to be. And
we had a couple of van life people too. Okay?
Yeah. Our actions, I think, allowed this transition to be incredibly painless, considering where it could have been. The one thing you have to keep in mind, and this is always the truth, they don't owe you anything. We thankfully had a culture where people provided back what we needed, because we had always provided them what they needed.
Yeah.
And there was no expectation.
Yeah.
You have to be open. You have to be honest. You have to give them options. You have to help them in the transition. Don't expect anything. If you get anything in return, that's a great gift. We are so lucky to have gotten that gift from each and every person we've worked with.
Yeah.
But don't expect it, because then you're not only going through the crisis you're going through, you're expecting them to go through your crisis as well, and it's not their crisis to go through.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
that's my word of caution here.
Yeah.
As we move forward. So.
Yeah, and one thing to keep in mind for future reference is there are certain things that we've already mentioned in terms of knowing your numbers, keeping your operational costs as low as possible. Why do you have such a large space? Who is that studio really for? Is it for, your own vanity, or is it for an actual need for clients? The numbers don't lie, and they'll kind of give you the answer pretty quickly. And then the team, the staff, what is the size of that staff, and what is it that you actually need to accomplish your mission as a company, as a business? Our goal as a business needs to be profitable and sustainable. When you continue thinking about those things, right now you're in a place where you just want to get out of the fog, but just keep an eye on that, because down the line, when it's time to kind of restructure how you're doing business, that will be key in how you're going to do that. So now we've kind of talked about the idea of knowing your dollars and cutting your expenses. Let's talk a little bit about some of the things that can bring cash in pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Bringing in cash that's breathing room to me. And so when we look at that, there are, I'd say, probably 4 places to look at. There's your current clients, and I mean current clients, like you're actively doing work with them. You have a good relationship with them. Those are your current clients. Yeah. We have maybe some leads, some that have maybe kicked some tires or have talked to you in the past. Maybe you met with them somewhere for coffee, but they're not quite ready to be a customer. Those leads, I think there might be an opportunity there. Your current accounts receivable. We said in the first part to look at what is the cash that you're expecting in that accounts receivable. That's key. And then also the 4th one, which is the one we urge the absolute most caution with, which is the how to get absolute rapid cash from just the area in which you operate. It could be small businesses that are all around you. It could be small restaurants. Could be anything like that. But these are, I would call them fairly low-cost packages. And I know, Bryan, you've got a lot to say on how to structure those really well. And I mean, good advice for people on how to really structure them. We've been burned before by these. Mm-hmm. People will take advantage of you. So, but starting at the top, when we look at existing clients, what are some things that you think of when you think about existing clients, and some ways that maybe you can very quickly get some activity going with them? There's sort of short term, and then there's kind of like the intermediate that things you can layer on top of each other with them.
Sure, and I don't want to step too far, because I know there's a bunch to cover, and I want to be quick about this. Everyone's time is valuable, and I respect the people who are tuning in. First, these people. You have continually known them. Reintroduce yourself to the work you've done for them. And by that, I mean, go through the old footage. Go through old transcripts. Really get well versed in what you actually have already recorded for them. Because the next phase is to reach out to them directly. And in reaching out to them, it's basically a check-in. Where are you at? What's going on? How are things happening? Okay. What's the next challenges coming? If you have that good of a relationship, you're going to know about the problems well before media knows about the problems, well before the market knows about the problems. And you may actually be able to structure a couple of, I'll call it low-hanging fruit projects for them. And some of them could be just small bites that they can use to pepper social media with their upcoming challenges based on interview content that you've already gotten. And you just send that to them to remind them that we're here for you. Mm-hmm. The next stage is to get them to be there for you as well. And that may come across as saying, well, we know you have this, and hopefully those were helpful. Were they helpful? Oh, great. The pieces, the little 5-second, 10-second bites we sent you were helpful. How wonderful is that? We were thinking. And that leads to here's a problem that's coming. If you have a vendor that's a client that speaks to this coming into town or nearby, all you would need is a couple of interview questions of A to plug into pre-existing footage we have of B, C, D, and E to create a brand new message around that challenge you're having right now. How does that sound? you start re-engaging them, but you re-engage them with not them coming to you, but you going to them and saying, been thinking about this. So where are you at right now? How are things going? What's going on? And this takes an active client who's not necessarily ready to drop the next project at your lap and suddenly gets them in the queue a lot faster. Mm-hmm. And frankly, it's legitimate because you're putting in the back end work to remind yourself of everything you have for them ahead of time so you can speak to them and show them how easy it is to adapt that to their current needs. And frankly, mm-hmm. the cost for them will be reasonable because you're not filming an entire new project and you're showing how valuable what you do has been for them all along. That tweak, that new interview gets plugged in. We now have a new video. So you're starting to get them more engaged within their own sales cycle with you.
Yeah.
Have I left something out of that?
Well, I would add I think there's also an opportunity to be super direct and getting a sale. Like even if you call them, like I know, hopefully you have the type of relationship with your clients that you can actually call them and be super blunt. You know, like I know with our clients, I can call them and say, hey, yeah, I just wanted to reach out. I was like, we actually have a big gap between, you know, we have a gap of a month between projects, and we're just looking for ways to serve our clients and maybe get some projects in the door. And so we were thinking of you, and I wanted to pitch a project to you if that's okay, and then literally send them an email. It's already prepackaged. You've already put in the work of what this is going to cost. It nothing on their end, because in terms of like how much time it will take them, because they don't have to arrange for anything. You already have the interviews. How do you use what you already have? And imagine creating a package where they can send an email campaign to their prospects on their sales end that has these short little 30-second videos that maybe they're testimonials from customers you've interviewed before, or maybe they're sound bites from the CEO or different service providers within their company that their prospects could get excited about, but you're already prepackaging it for them. And you're saying, and look, we're just looking to fill some time here. So we actually gave you guys have been great to us. So we gave you this amazing deal. And, you know, literally you're talking about this amazing partnership and friendship, but you're packaging a little sales thing that you can just throw that at them immediately and say, what do you think? Is this something we can do? You know, they might say no, but some will say yes. And if you multiply that across all your different clients, you got to put in some work ahead of time, but it's something that you can send out pretty quickly, whether it's an email campaign or say, hey, I noticed you guys have been on LinkedIn a lot. I was like, we created this series for you. This is what it would cost. And it would be, 8 weeks worth of content on LinkedIn. And it's content you already have in our database. It's all these interviews, but here's how we're going to package them for you for LinkedIn. And we're going to use the transcript to actually write the post for you. So it's just kind of like expanding what it is and how you work with them because you're thinking of them. So I think both of those ways. And I think, and when I look at Bryan's, like you're laying this groundwork for how your relationship with them is going to change and evolve over time even more. Mm-hmm. And so it's just building on that trust. The other thing you can do with those same clients is also ask them for referrals. They don't spend their entire day, every single day, thinking about you. they got work.
They don't.
They have work to do. No, I mean they might think of you while they're driving home, but they're not thinking of you every second of every day. They've got their own work to do, and they might have had coffee with another company that you've been dying to work with. Ask the referral. None of us ever do that enough. So that's another way to kind of reach out to them personally and ask for that kind of thing. So your existing clients are a big one. And in the first part, we talked about knowing what that cash is that's coming in. When you know what that is, if you have a client that has an invoice that's coming in, let's say in 30 days, reach out to them and say, hey, we're looking to close out some of our invoices, and we're actually throwing a 10% discount. If you wanted to pay it early, we'll give you a 10% discount on it. And some of them might look at it like, oh, heck yeah, of course. Who doesn't want to save 10% on what could be a sizable amount? Be cautious with the level of discount you do on it. And not something you want to do too often because every dollar matters. But this is about survival. This is about getting you through this fog. This is not necessarily a business model. Part of it is, but not the discounting stuff, But to get through the cloud, this is one way that you can do that, is offer a small discount on the accounts receivables to try to get it in faster. And then when it comes to leads, just, kind of the same thing. Actually, with leads, it might even work well, that combination, what Bryan was saying, with really laying on the groundwork. Hey, I was really thinking about you after that coffee we had, and we thought of something. It's like, if we came in and did 2 interviews with you, it would just take like an hour of your time. These are the things we could actually do for you, and it would be this much. It might be something to transition them from a lead to a customer, but get creative in how you do it. Sometimes we get stuck in my packages are this, and I don't, I've heard people say, I don't leave the house for anything under this amount. I was like, well, reconsider some of those things, and
check
think
the
about
ego at the door.
Yeah, and just get creative and really think of it as a service. Like we're here. We want to serve these clients and help them get through the challenges they're facing. There's a lot of good that can come from that. So those are some of the big ones. Now, Bryan, I'm going to let you lead the way on this next one, because I don't want to use the word fire sale or deep discounts or everything must go. I don't want to use those words, but there is a case to be said for, again, this is survival, and you need cash. There is a client pool that you can go out to and just say, hey, I have a package that can serve you well. We could do it quickly for you. Give us some of the rules that we should live by when it comes to these, and why. Yeah,
no, this is good, because first of all, what I said before, check the ego at the door, literally leave it on a coat hanger. You may say, well, I don't do that kind of thing. I don't work with mom and pop stores, for instance. I only work with, outletted, regional. Okay, great. You need money. So maybe you can. I'm not asking you, if you're not a wedding videographer, to go out and shoot a wedding. I'm not asking that. I'm saying niche down. Find where your skill set is, and slide it in a niche fashion accordingly. So you go up and down Main Street, you walk into businesses, you sell your wares, and how do you keep from them not just seeing you as a bargain basement, fire sale kind of vendor? And we all know what that looks like. We've all
race to the bottom
that or seen it.
Yep.
It's a race to the bottom. So how do you keep that from happening? Well, you want to give the best service you can for what's considered a reasonable cost for these people, and you want to move on. Now, we don't want to be the value bargain basement production companies, but if you create a package that's A, B, C, and D designed for Main Street, USA, I'm thinking of our local shopping district area just to make it easy for myself. And you go in and you put guardrails on what this package is and is not. You can crank it out. You can do a really killer job. It may not be on your edit reel, but it's something that will serve them well. Not you, not your edit reel, but them. Can you do that, not have it devour your soul, bring in the money, and still say it was profitable for what you're trying to accomplish? And the answer is yes. Those guardrails are the key. When we work with our ongoing clients, there tends to be scope creep on projects. They tend to erase the guardrails. There are no guardrails. You get pushed over the guardrails. Some clients take advantage of you, but in this, you're very specific. Here's the package. Here's how it can help you. Here's how we can limit the cost and still give you great output. Oh, this is wonderful. I want A, B, C, and D. I'm sorry, that's not in the scope of this project. We can write up a proposal for you if you would like, but it's not going to be as low as this. It can't be.
Matter of fact, you could even put that in the initial thing that you present them. Like,
Absolutely.
Be ahead of them and say, that they're going to ask for these 3 things, and put at the bottom, say, if these 3 things are desired, add X amount, add X amount, add X amount, so that they see there's a real cost to that. Yeah, we'll do that for you. Here's what the actual bill is going to be. So, be very clear and transparent in how you structure it.
It's guardrail, rationality, and expectations. Johnny talked a little bit earlier about this idea of, well, it's a slow time for us. We can offer this up. We want to keep our people busy. That language is not uncommon. If we were in the middle of an economic crisis, which I feel might be coming, the way I would position it out there is, hey, we have the ability to do this now. In the next 3 months, in the next 1 month, in the next 2 months, we are offering these packages because we find ourselves with a little bit extra breathing room, a little overhead on what we normally do. We figured we would help the community out by offering these packages and helping Main Street USA do what it does best. You can get that expectation going with the reason why you are, quote unquote, and this is not what I mean, but slumming it with them. You know what I mean? Offer good quality, good service, keep the guardrails on, and have a reason for doing it. And that goes hand in hand with another piece that I'll add in here, which, Johnny, I'm not sure you're ready for it, but I'm ready for it. And that is, take on projects you normally wouldn't take on. Doesn't matter the size, doesn't matter the shape. Know why you're doing it. For me, I can't stand it when a client just wants me to come in and film or edit. Well, we have so much more to give. That used to drive me nuts because I'd come in and they'd want to direct and do everything. And it's okay. I got to the point after this where I realized, as long as I know why I'm going in, what the expectations are, what we're goal and tasked with, I can live there. We have a lot more to offer, but this client doesn't want to take advantage of that, and that's okay. I can charge accordingly, do what they need me to do, and still be able to look at myself in the mirror, know that I did a great job at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You have to be able to check that ego at the door to do any of this. So that's my hot take, and I probably went way too far with it, but it really comes down to checking the ego, setting the guardrails, knowing what the expectation is, and being okay at the end of the day. You need the cash.
Yeah, you need the cash. So there are a lot of things that we mentioned in this that are things that you should keep in mind for future setups. So once you get through this little dark cloud and this moment that you're in, this fog, once you get through this, there is going to be some reevaluating that you're going to have to do. There are going to be some moments where you have to really understand it's where the work starts. Who do I want to be as a professional? Who do I want to be as a person? What do I want my business to stand for? And what am I really chasing? And your goal should be to be a profitable, sustainable company. And we'll talk in future episodes about what that really means and how it ties into mission and how much more impact you can make if you are a profitable company and if you do it in the right way. So some of these things we're laying in seem like emergency measures, but some of them are actually things that you're going to carry with you from this point forward. Mm-hmm. So we wish you the very best in what you're going through right now. We've been there. We know what this is like. It's very lonely, and find someone that you can talk to. One person, could be one person, a bookkeeper, could be a friend, anyone, a family member, someone that you can talk to so that you can tell them things like, I'm scared. It's okay to admit that. It's okay to admit those feelings. As a matter of fact, it's important. If you can release some of those feelings, you can actually think a little bit clearer. So there's a lot that we've packed into this episode, and there's still a lot more that we could cover, and there will be over the next few episodes. But in the meantime, look for the download link. We have the form that you can begin to fill out to just get a good lay of the land of what's going on, or work with your bookkeeper and get a good QuickBooks report to really fully understand what your expenses are and what your income and what your AR is and all of that. Thanks for being on this episode with us. And we know there are going to be a lot of people who have different comments than what we're saying, or they might disagree with a lot of things that we're saying, and we get it, and that's okay. Put them down in the comments. If you disagree, put them in the comments. If you agree with us, put them in the comments. If there's a situation you're going through, put it in. Maybe others have some ideas as well that can help out. But definitely in the meantime, please subscribe to the channel and hit that like button, and we will see you all on the next one.
Stay safe, stay healthy.